Welcome to this Scriptcase webinar. In today's webinar, we will be reviewing the grid application and its PDF export features, during which we will run through the available options and see what we can achieve with a few clicks using the Scriptcase web development platform. So let's begin. We are starting off within the samples project, which you may recognize. If you haven't actually checked this out yet, then I would highly recommend it, as you can learn a great deal from the pre-configured samples within this project. Now, I am using this project as we need a database for this project, and there is already a database available and prepared with the samples project. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new application and create then also a grid application. I will be selecting the orders table within the samples project. Now I am using this table as there is specific data within this table that we want to use for the export. Okay, so I'm going to create that. And then once created, we will then have our grid. So each of the grid modules which we have indicated here, we have the search, grid, detail, summary, and chart modules, are each supported and fully exportable via the PDF export option within the grid application. So let's go ahead and run this now as it is, so that we can see the default grid application. We have here a header with a logo, a title, which of course we can all remove. We can customize the various list objects or information within this list, which we will do as we continue. So going back to the grid, we have our export options. Now here we see the various export types, as well as then the export option for PDF, which will be our main concentration today. So going back to our grid, we see here the export option and the PDF. So let's go ahead and do that. And we see here our settings. We have our print settings so that we can change color, black and white, the type of page layout we want, the orientation, and we also have options to display the header on all pages and also to display the title on all pages. So I'll go ahead and generate a PDF, and then we can view that. Now we can see here that we have here automatically with the default options. Let's go back. So here we selected on PDF, display the header on all pages, which we have, header. Going to the next page, the header is also included, and so on. And then also the title on all pages is also displayed. And then as we see here, the title is displayed on each page. So of course we can disable these options and choose not to display the title on each page or the header. And then let's view that now. And we now have no header or titles on the following pages. So now within the grid, we can actually change these options and remove the possibility of allowing the user to remove the header, so that the header is always displayed, or that the titles is also always displayed. So let's go through some of these options. One of the new features is the option to export with a password. So if I enable this, and here I will configure a password and run. Now if we then go to the export again and export our PDF and then go to view it, we will be required to add a password for the PDF. So now the browser itself doesn't support passwords, so we'll need an actual PDF reader for this, and we will be required to enter a password for the PDF file. Otherwise, as you see, we are no longer able to read this within a web browser by default. So let's disable that for the time being. And then we have here also the option to select columns. So enable an option in the application generated to allow if the user can choose the fields that will be exported. So when we're within the PDF, within the grid, if we come back here and we go to PDF, we have here the option to select columns. Now this is exactly this option here that we have, select columns. Disabling this will then remove that option from the PDF export. So we come back here to PDF, and now the select columns is no longer available. This way forcing the end user to print all of the indicated columns that we have provided within the specific grid. So let's continue on. We have then also PDF chart depth output selection. Allows the user to decide to what depth of the group by charts will be generated in the PDF. Now for this feature to work, we actually need to create a group. So we will skip this for the time being and come back to this in a moment. So selecting page break per level. This one allows the end user to set up what grouping level will jump page in PDF generated. So again, we require a group, which we will go ahead and do in a moment. So continuing on, the next available new features are the PDF settings available to the end user. So now here within the PDF, if we go back here to the grid, we have here the PDF export options, and we can specify here what is actually available. So here we can specify the grid export modules, the summary modules, the print types, and so on. And now, for instance, if I remove these two options here, which is then the title and the header, and then we go and run the grid again, we will see these two checkboxes here be removed and no longer available to the end user. Okay, so display all headers is this one here. So let's do that again. And then we should now have no longer the option for the user to remove our custom headers. So let's go ahead and add that again. And I will then also add the option to compress the PDF. Now, running this again, we will now have an extra option. We also have the select columns available again, which we enabled. And now we also have the option to compress the exported PDF. Now, during export, it could take a little bit longer, of course, for the exportation process to happen as we are compressing the PDF, and that can consume some extra resources. So next up, we have the grid export modules. Now this defines which modules will be exported in the grid. Now if we go back here to the grid modules, we can see here the grid, detail, summary, and chart options. And then we see here within the PDF that we are here able to enable or disable those specific export features. So when we come back to this, we will actually see this in a little more detail. So now let's go ahead first of all and create our group, and we're going to create a static group, and then we will come back to these options that we have here, as the majority of these actually come into play as we create a group. So let's create a new group by, and then here we are going to select the customer ID, and then we are also going to select the price order. Okay, and then we will also include the price order again here within the summary. Now within the group by fields, we are also going to add here the order date. And the date, we're going to change this here now to month. Okay, so let's go ahead and run that. And now within the grid application, we see all of our orders organized by month. Now, if we export this now with our default options, we see now that we have an extra option for the chart. Select the level for the customer ID or the month of order date. So now, let me come back here to the grid first of all, and we're going to go back to our PDF options. Now here we had the PDF chart depth output selection. So it allows the user to decide to what depth of the group by charts will be generated by the PDF. So now if we remove this option and run again, and then we will again go to export and PDF, we now no longer are able to select the group by export. So this is where this option here comes in, and this can of course be quite handy. So I'm going to leave it on for the time being. The next option was the selecting page break per level. So now when we come here to the export, we have here the option which we didn't have previously to display the title beneath each group by, and also the option to generate bookmarks. So now the bookmarks would be presented on the group by. So let's go ahead and generate that, and then we are going to view this PDF once it has been generated, of course. And we selected the group by month, didn't we? So it's now actually generating multiple PDFs and charts. And as we're going to see in a moment, we will have quite a lot of information exported. So now we have the PDF generated. We can go ahead and click the View button. And now we can view the PDF. And as we see, we have the group bys also displayed. And viewing the PDF options, we can also see now here the bookmarks. So now scrolling all the way down, as you see, we have a lot of information here, which is why the generation took a little time. And we have down here then also the PDF charts. So that we can select that bookmark. We have here the summary exported, as well as then the chart information grouped as we had indicated. So let's go back into the PDF grid. And what we want to do then is also check out some of these other options here. So we have the display header in all pages. We can select to remove this and display the title on all pages. Now, of course, at the moment, we have the user who selects this when we go to PDF and export. We have here the option display the title on all pages, display the header on all pages. And of course, here we can actually remove the entire option. Okay. Now below this we have some further PDF settings where we can check the amount of records per page. We can also indicate how the page numbers are provided. So for instance here on our PDF at the moment, close this one, we have the page numbers at the top, and they are also simple numbers. So let's go ahead and change that to complete numbers, and we're going to also move them into the center and align them to the bottom. Now we can also apply some extra options here, such as a timeout for large PDF generation. So in the case of this PDF, if say for instance we had an extra 1,000 records or so, and of course we may end up having a timeout, so we can actually increase this timeout value, and also the timeout for the image creation of the charts. So let's go ahead and run this with the page numbering changes that we have also made. So then within the grid, let's go ahead and export the PDF again. This time I'll leave the default options and we'll just go ahead and go OK. And now once generated, we can then also view the PDF again, and we should now see that the numbers have changed. It is now on the bottom in the center, and we now have one of 185 pages instead of just page number 1. Now let's fill out some of this grid a little. So we have a little more information here. Let's come here to the fields. We're going to correct the customer ID so that we have some information here instead of just some basic. So we want to change the lookup settings, automatic, and we have here a customer table. There we are. Select the customer name. Just leave that as it is. Select connection, and let's run that. So now we have also the customer names, also the employee ID. So another one, employees. Okay, so here we have two fields for our employees, and here we're going to go, I believe that would be about right. And let's set the connection again and run this. Now we should have the customer ID, the customer, and we still have here, okay, this is still correct. This isn't correct. This is actually a code for the customer. So let's go ahead within the group and change that also customer ID. And here we also want to indicate the customer details. And again, the customer name. And run this again. So now we should have the full customer name instead of the customer ID. We also have the ID here in the page, the customer name, employee name all indicated. Now let's add a few extra options here. Now something I always like to add on records depending on. Okay, so here on record I already have a pre-prepared script, and there we have now the current date, say it is today. And then if here the field order date is more than the current date, and then we're going to change the color of the field. So now if I run that grid, and then now we should see within the grid report we have now some colored fields. So now we have the majority of our information complete. Let's now also change the header, and we can place here possibly a different image, and let's just use that for this example. We go ahead and run that again, and we will have different data. Ooh, let's actually pick something much larger, shall we? So let's go with an icon. It should look quite nice. Information, add selected, and run. Export PDF, select columns, and this time make sure we leave the customer, employee ID, and the order date within the selected, and go OK. PDF is then being written, and we can then, once created, of course, view again. And we can now see our custom colors within the fields. Our custom logo has also been applied, as well as all of the field information. Now, if we then come back here again to customize various details within here, the summary and the chart, then those will also be reflected within the end PDF that we have here. So if, for instance, we come down here to the charts, and then we will go ahead, summary, view the summary first, because there we also have our custom information applied, the custom ID, which we need to add there also. So let's go ahead and back to the grid. We're going to come back here to the group by. And there we're going to go ahead and check the customer ID field, which is correct. We have the, okay, everything selected. Let's just adjust that and run this again. So now we have, okay, employee ID, customer ID, customer ID. Let's export again. We will this time leave the grid and just export the summary and chart. Again, I will select the same fields as previous, leaving the customer, employee, and the order date within the columns. And let's view the PDF again. So now that the PDF is ready, we can again go and view that. And we can see here now, first of all, we only have the summary. The customer IDs are correctly applied. We are then listing or grouping the user and then displaying each month of that user with a total sum. Now, if I scroll all the way down, or in fact, let's use the bookmarks, and then we can come down here and view the charts. And as we see, now we have pie charts instead of the previous bar charts, and alternative information displayed. So within the grid application, let's have a recap of the new features which have been added, which are within the export PDF, We can now export our PDF with a secure password, ensuring that our documents are not read by the incorrect person. We can also enable or disable the option to select columns. So let me remind you, the select columns on export for the PDF would be this tab here. So we can actually hide this from the end user or give them the option to customize the fields that they want to export. We can also select the PDF chart depth output selection, which, as indicates, allows the user again to decide what depth of the group by charts are generated. So here again, within the report, the PDF settings, we can select here the group level. Now, do remember that in some cases, selecting a group level which would provide or generate multiple PDFs can also increase on resources. So in some cases, you may want to limit that. We then also have the selecting page break per level and the option to specify directly which options are available to the end user. Again, within the PDF, that would be these options here. And we can also specify which modules we want to export. So removing the grid or summary, again, would remove these following options within the PDF export. In that case, we would no longer have the option to export the summary, the grid, or the chart, depending on what you have selected here. Then we also have the summary export modules. Again, we can then define the export modules for the summary specifically. So now we have also the option to generate bookmarks, display or hide the header on all pages, again, removing the option from the end user on export. Okay. And then we also have the option to hide or display the title below each group, as well as compress the PDF directly. Again, these would be removing or adding the options here for the end user or defining them permanently as a static option for your grid. So I thank you very much for attending today's webinar. I hope you have enjoyed this and learned something new. Thank you very much and have a nice day.